A cardinal grants an honor to a pro-abortion politician, and bishops are now objecting. Bishop Thomas Paprocki of Springfield, Illinois, is here to explain, and Father Gerald Murray will react to that and the news of the week. The fierce persecution of Christians in Syria continues. And could New York City soon see a socialist Muslim mayor? Dr. Walid Phares is here with analysis. Director and producer Sean McNamara shares his new timely film, Bow, Artists at War. The World Over begins right now.
Now, Raymond Arroyo.
A warm welcome to all of you joining us in the United States and the world over. An important show for you this week. If you'd like to comment, send me an X post. I'm at Raymond Arroyo and at Arroyo Grande Show on YouTube. The Archdiocese of Chicago, led by Cardinal Blase Cupich, recently announced his intention to honor Illinois Senator Dick Durbin with a Lifetime Achievement Award this November. They're granting the award for his work on behalf of immigrants. This despite Senator Durbin's very public and long-standing support of legalized abortion. My next guest is publicly protesting this honor, and he's making headlines due to the opposition. Joining me now, the Bishop of Springfield, Illinois, Thomas Paprocki. Bishop, thank you for being here. Senator Dick Durbin actually lives within the boundaries of your diocese, and since 2004, he has been forbidden by you to receive communion in the Diocese of Springfield because he violates Canon 915, which reads, obstinately persevering in manifest grave sin through public support of abortion disqualifies him for communion. Your Excellency, what did you think when you first heard about this award being bestowed on Senator Durbin?
Well, when I heard about it, I was really shocked because, as you said, he does not receive communion in our diocese. He was told back in 2004 by his pastor at that time was then Monsignor Kevin Van, who is now the Bishop of Orange in California. And that was upheld by my predecessor, Bishop George Lucas, who's now the Archbishop Emeritus of Omaha. So this precedes me. I didn't come to Springfield. I was appointed in 2010. But Senator Durbin and his family make their home in Springfield, and so that's why it's very relevant here to us in the Diocese of Springfield and Illinois. And so when I saw that the Archdiocese of Chicago was going to honor Senator Durbin, I sent a private email to Cardinal Cupich last Friday morning, early in the morning, and just let him know that I was very shocked to hear this and asked him to revoke that award. But I also made it clear that if he continued with this, I would have to say something publicly. And so he emailed me back and made it clear he didn't intend to proceed. And so I then was contacted by the Pillar on their website, and J.D. Flynn did an interview with me, and I released a statement. And so the news has been spreading since then.
Yeah, I'm stunned that Cardinal Cupich didn't reach out to you. I mean, you're a suffragan bishop. He's the metropolitan. I'm stunned he didn't reach out to you before announcing this decision. He didn't, you're saying?
No, he didn't. And his position is that Senator Durbin spoke to him back in 2018, I believe he said, and told Cardinal Cupich that he did not consider me, Bishop Paprocki, to be his bishop anymore because he has a condominium in Chicago and he goes to Mass in Chicago, where apparently they do give him a Holy Communion. But that doesn't eliminate the fact that he still has his home. His domicile is in my diocese. So if he goes to Mass in Chicago, that's fine. He can do that. But it's clear that he still has his home in Springfield, and even his official Senate webpage says that he is a resident of Springfield. So I would have thought that would be something, that at least there'd be some consultation on that, since Senator Durbin's record has been so consistently promoting abortion.
Yeah, Your Excellency, when I read this, my first thought was, and I've seen a lot of criticism of you in recent days, people saying that you are breaking the fraternity and the unity of the church by expressing your opposition to this honor. I want your reflection on the idea of adhering to church teaching to maintain the unity of the church.
Well, Pope Leo recently had a speech that he gave about that, and I remember him saying in that truth does not destroy unity, and so it's false unity if something is happening contrary to the church teaching, somebody's doing or saying something to the church teaching, and we remain silent. There've been some good readings this week in our Liturgy of the Hours from St. Augustine about how we can't keep silent, that it's important for us to speak up and to speak the truth. So I would say what disrupts unity is not speaking up. What destroys unity is when someone acts contrary to church teaching, and then I think we have an obligation to speak up and to offer correction.
Yeah, well, and then is lauded for opposing church teaching. On September 19th, you issued this initial fraternal correction to Cardinal Cupich. It was a public statement, and you wrote the following: "I was shocked to learn that the Archdiocese of Chicago plans to honor Senator Richard Durbin with a Lifetime Achievement Award through its Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity. Given Senator Durbin's long and consistent record of supporting legal abortion, including opposing legislation to protect children who survive failed abortions, this decision risks causing grave scandal, confusing the faithful about the Church's unequivocal teaching on the sanctity of human life." Your Excellency, did that statement yield any response? Did you hear anything from Cardinal Cupich or your confreres? I mean, I'm going to talk about in a minute about those who are supporting you, but did you hear any blowback?
Yes. Well, I did share my reaction, my shock with Cardinal Cupich, as I said, and asked him to rescind it, and I explained the reasons why, and he responded, making clear that he was going to go ahead, and then he issued a statement on Monday that made it clear that he was going to continue with this plan to give an award, and it's not just for immigration. They're saying that's what the main reason they're honoring him, but they're calling it a Lifetime Achievement Award. So it's like looking at the totality of his career, and if you're going to do that, well, then I think that he's clearly disqualified because of his persistent promotion of the abortion right. I pointed out that this is contrary to the consistent ethic of life that Cardinal Bernardin was so insistent on back in the 80s and 90s. And I know that well because I was Cardinal Bernardin's chancellor. And some people think that the consistent ethic of life says, well, as long as you've got most of the Catholic teachings, it's okay if you dissent on one or two of them. And I've got a wonderful quote from Cardinal Bernardin back in 1988. He was interviewed in the National Catholic Register. And he said clearly, I know some people want to use the consistent ethic to say abortion is not that important as long as we're talking about other issues. He said that's a misuse of the consistent ethic, and I deplore it. It was very strong language. So I think that's what's happening here. Because they're saying, well, Durbin does a lot of good things, but he just happens to be pro-abortion, and that doesn't matter all that much.
Well,
that would be like saying,
well,
let me just say, it'd be like saying that you follow 9 of the 10 commandments. It's just that one on thou shalt not kill that. Well, forget about that.
Well, 9 out of 10 ain't bad. I mean, that's what they'd probably say, but I agree with you. Look, I want to read this to you. This is Cardinal Cupich's response to your fraternal correction, and he posted this on the Chicago Archdiocesan website on September 22nd, and it reads, at the heart of the consistent ethic of life is the recognition that Catholic teaching on life and dignity cannot be reduced to a single issue, even an issue as important as abortion. The annual celebration of immigrants, Keep Hope Alive, will recognize all the critically important contributions Senator Durbin has taken to advance Catholic social teaching in the areas of immigration, the care of the poor, Laudato Si, and world peace. The recognition of his defense of immigrants at this moment, when they are subjected to terror and harm, is not something to be regretted, but a reflection that the Lord stands profoundly with both immigrants who are in danger and those who work to protect them. Your Excellency, it sounds like what you mentioned a moment ago, misusing this seamless garment idea that was put forward by Cardinal Bernardin. How do you respond to abortion just being one? I mean, he says it right off the top, that at the heart of the consistent ethic of life is a recognition you can't reduce everything down to a single issue. You would say what?
I would say that if Cardinal Bernardin were alive today, that citing the consistent ethic of life as somehow justifying giving this Lifetime Achievement Award to Senator Durbin is a misuse of the consistent ethic of life, that he just apparently doesn't understand what that consistent ethic is all about. I would also point out that sometimes a single issue can be a very overriding issue. In fact, the bishops of the United States have called abortion the preeminent issue that we need to deal with here in the United States. Yep. And I'm the Bishop of Springfield in Illinois. We call it the land of Lincoln. And so we're very aware of Lincoln's role in ending slavery in the United States. If you go back to the 19th century, mid-19th century, the Lincoln-Douglas debates, for example, that's basically all they talked about was slavery. I mean, you could say that was a single issue, but it was the overriding preeminent issue of that time, as abortion should be today.
Since your initial statement, brother bishops have come forward. Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco, Bishop James Wall of Gallup, Bishop James Conley of Lincoln, Bishop Lauren Ricken of Green Bay, and Bishop Joseph Strickland, formerly of Tyler, Texas. They've all echoed your concerns. Did you expect this kind of support? I mean, this is rare for a group of bishops to rise up and kind of fraternally correct a cardinal.
Well, I was hoping for that, and I'm pleased to see it, because this is not an issue simply between Cardinal Cupich and Bishop Paprocki. It shouldn't be seen in that. Now, I weighed in first because of Senator Durbin's connection and his residence in my diocese in Springfield. But I think every bishop in the United States really should be concerned about this, because it's a policy of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. It was very clear going back to 2004 when we issued a document on Catholics in political life, which was around the same time and perhaps what prompted his pastor at that time to tell Senator Durbin not to go to communion. But it was very clear that in that statement on Catholics in political life that the bishops of the United States said that we should not give honors to people who teach or act contrary to Catholic teaching. And we more recently reaffirmed that in our document on Eucharistic coherence. So, when you have a policy of the National Bishops' Conference being violated, I would think every bishop should be concerned. But why do we bother having these policies if they could be ignored and if nobody says anything? So I'm glad other bishops are speaking up.
Yeah, well, Bishop, there's also, I did a Prayerful Posse episode and we dug into this as well. There is a standing policy in the Archdiocese of Chicago which clearly states we are not to honor anyone who violates any public official who's in violation of Catholic teaching, for the very reason that you pointed out in your subsequent statement. You said that this decision could be a source of scandal among Catholics and the public at large, and that it will understandably confuse people as to whether the Church is sincere in its opposition to abortion. Is that where this is headed? Is this meant to muddy the waters, an honor like this?
Well, I use the word scandal because I think that's precisely the concern here. Scandal in two senses of that word. The more common understanding of people, I think, have when they hear the word scandal, they think of something shocking. And scandal this is shocking, and I've used that word also, that this is shocking news. But scandal in the more technical sense means that somebody does something wrong that will lead other people to do the same wrong. And I think it's scandalous in that sense that giving an award to to a politician who has a consistent pro-abortion voting record gives scandal, because it basically gives the message to other politicians, well, you can be Catholic and you can be pro-abortion and it doesn't matter. And so I can vote that way. So that's where the scandal comes in.
Your Excellency, before I let you go, what are you hearing from Catholics in your diocese and around the country? I mean, obviously you have this group of bishops that have gathered around you, supported you in this, and I'm told there are others who may be joining their number. What are you hearing from local Catholics?
Oh, I'm hearing lots. I've gotten many telephone messages of support. I've gotten a lot of emails and text messages from people, and I'd say 99% of them are very supportive. So I appreciate those words of support, and many people are offering their prayers. Again, this what people are hoping for is a change of heart. They're really just hoping that this honor would be either withdrawn, or that Senator Durbin himself might say that he doesn't want to cause division, and he would just simply decline to accept the award. That either one of those outcomes was, I think, what people are praying for.
Bishop Thomas Paprocki, always a pleasure, and you can read the bishop's columns on his diocesan website in Springfield at dio.org. Your Excellency, thank you again.
You're welcome. God bless you.
Joining me now with reaction and analysis, and we'll also address Pope Leo's appointment of a new Archbishop of New Orleans and more, canon lawyer, priest of the Archdiocese of New York, a member of the papal posse, Father Gerald Murray. Father Jerry, thank you for being here. Your reaction as a canonist to what you heard from Bishop Paprocki, particularly speak to that Canon 915, which Durbin is obviously in violation of. Tell me what that means, the implications, and I guess it was the bishop before Bishop Paprocki who invoked it.
Yes, no, the bishop is very precise. He's a canon lawyer himself. He spoke well. He talked about the real nature of scandal. Scandal is not just shock. It's leading people to commit sin through example or word. And Canon 915 says that Holy Communion shall not be administered to people who manifestly and obstinately persist in grave sin. So what this is, it's the category, it used to be called public sinner in the former code of canon law, but in the revised code from 1983, the language has shifted, but the reality is the same. And it's a judgment that someone who is doing something that objectively contradicts the gospel in a serious manner is going to do spiritual harm to himself and to others by receiving Holy Communion. And the spiritual harm consists in the thought that the church has normalized or approved of what was formerly considered sinful behavior, because otherwise, why would she give Holy Communion to that person? So that's what's at stake here.
Father, what do you make of Cardinal Cupich's justification for honoring Senator Durbin, a Catholic? He says, the Cardinal does, that he's celebrating his promotion of immigration, that these life issues, including the non-negotiable sin of abortion, are all part of this tapestry of life, and they have to be considered so by Catholics and Catholic politicians. Your thoughts?
Well, I think he's straining for a reason to honor someone he agrees with on most issues, but not on abortion. But abortion doesn't disqualify him from receiving an honor in the mind of Cardinal Cupich. And I'm very troubled by that, because by giving the honor, he's conveying to people the message he doesn't really care that Senator Durbin is a promoter of legalized abortion. Yeah. That's what people are going to think, no matter what Cardinal Cupich says about, well, it's only honoring part of his life. When you give a Lifetime Achievement Award, as Bishop Paprocki said, you're honoring the totality of the man's life. And what he's achieved in regards to abortion is horrendous. Yeah. Abortion is a crime. It kills our unborn brothers and sisters. Yeah. We should have nothing to do with giving an honor to a man who does that. Yeah.
Well, there is growing support for Bishop Paprocki and his fraternal correction here. And we should state for the record that, you know, this is a suffragan of the Metropolitan Archbishop. Cardinal Cupich is the Metropolitan of the state, of the area, or the region. Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone was among the first to come out to support Bishop Paprocki. He said this: I stand in solidarity with Bishop Thomas Paprocki of Springfield in urging Cardinal Cupich to reconsider giving Senator Durbin a Lifetime Achievement Award. And he goes on here. And his problem is the long record of supporting legal abortion. I hope this will be a clarion call to all members of the body of Christ to speak out to make clear the grave evil that is the taking of innocent human life. Your reaction? I mean, since he stepped forward, Father, Archbishop Cordileone, we've seen a cascade of bishops coming. Do you expect others to come forward?
I think others will, and I'd encourage them to do so, because what happens in Chicago doesn't stay in Chicago. This is a national outrage. Dick Durbin is a senator in Washington. He's on the media a lot. He's a Catholic who promotes an horrendous crime of abortion. He should not be honored by a Catholic diocese. And, when you talk about consistent ethic of life, as Cardinal Supik does, well, Senator Durbin does not have a consistent ethic of life because he believes that unborn children do not have the right to life. And that is a horrendous way to deal with the law. You're using the law to authorize the killing of some people who have no reason to be killed except that they're in the womb, and the government says, go ahead and kill them. This is wrong. It shouldn't happen. I think Cardinal Supik has to withdraw this award if he wants to maintain that unity in the church, which is based on truth, not simply that everybody's going to smile when a cardinal says, I'm doing this.
I want to move on to an important appointment made by Pope Leo, important to me especially. A new coadjutor archbishop for New Orleans, former Bishop of McCutcheon, James Checchio, will succeed current Archbishop Gregory Aymon. The announcement was made in Washington by the papal nuncio in New Orleans. The archdiocese is facing bankruptcy, costly sex abuse settlements, $230 million in settlements. Checchio, who's a canonist, he holds an MBA, and he'll be assisting Archbishop Aymon, shepherding 500,000 Catholics in southern Louisiana, as well as all the difficulties he's dealing with. Now, Father, Bishop Checchio was rector of the North American College in Rome from 2006 to 2016. You know him. Your thoughts on this appointment, and what do you think he'll be facing in New Orleans?
Yes, no, I've known Bishop Checchio for 30 years. I met him when he was Father Checchio, and I was impressed with him then. I'm impressed with him now. He's been an excellent rector of the North American College. He was the Bishop of Metuchen until this new appointment. That's a neighboring diocese in New Jersey to where I am. And I know from interactions with him that he is a true shepherd of souls and that he is kind to his priests. He supports Catholic education. He's definitely pro-life and has taken steps to, ensure the pro-life message gets support in his diocese, and measures are taken to help women who have difficult pregnancies. He's a smart man, as you said, canon lawyer, and also an MBA. New Orleans, you know better than I do, but my familiarity with that diocese says they're going to need a shepherd who can, go from visiting a parish and greeting school children to sitting down with a bunch of lawyers and MBAs and people like that to hammer out, payment schedules and just compensation to victims of sex abuse. So I think this is a very good appointment, and I think that the priests and people in New Orleans are blessed with Bishop Checchio's appointment as their archbishop.
Yeah, no. Congratulations to Bishop Checchio, whom I knew too when he was Father Checchio. Before we run out of time, independent Vatican journalist Diane Montagna recently released a wide-ranging interview with Cardinal Gerhard Mueller, the former head of the Vatican's doctrinal office. In it, Mueller offers observations on a story we reported last week, the World Meeting of Human Fraternity, or on Human Fraternity. And the event featured a concert. There were pop stars and Jennifer Hudson and John Legend in St. Peter's Square at the foot of the Basilica. Over 3,000 drones were flown over St. Peter's, and they formed the Virgin Mary and Michelangelo's creation of Adam, and even had a large image of Pope Francis. Here's what Cardinal Mueller said about that. He said, "We must avoid any cult of personality, which is a pagan attitude. What message does the projection of Pope Francis's face rather than the face of Jesus Christ send to the world? Even the image of holy popes should never be used in this manner." It was a spectacular display, but your thoughts on Cardinal Mueller's assessment of that image?
No, I agree. Cardinal Mueller is a serious person. He's a theologian. He's very knowledgeable about the Holy See and the history of, how the Holy See relates to the world. And by basically inviting an entertainment forum to take over St. Peter's Square, and then they use, I agree, marvelous drone technology, but to have, the face of the deceased pontiff hovering over St. Peter's Basilica, it's eye-catching, but this is not the way we're supposed to look at the Pope, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I find that, the broader question here is, why in the world is the Catholic Church, the Holy See, getting into the entertainment business? This is not what it's all about. I love entertainment, but I do not go to St. Peter's Square to hear John Legend.
Yeah.
This is not, people contribute to, to support the Holy See through the Peter's Pence. It's not to pay for a soundstage. It's to help promote the mission of the church.
Yeah, well, so you're not going to be there for the comedy night in St. Peter's Square. We're not opening. We're not inviting you to the open mic at Pete's. We're not doing that, Father.
Well, there's always a lot of comedy in Rome.
Exactly.
Intentional or unintentional.
Yeah,
but we certainly. Why in the world would you obscure the beautiful facade with essentially, a small-time version of what goes on in Giant Stadium when you have big concerts?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was. I watched it and thought. I mean, it was beautiful, but it misplaced. It was just not the right setting for that. They could have done it in the gardens. They could have done it in somewhere doing the Colosseum. Why do you have to do it outside of St. Peter's? Yeah, it disturbs the sacrality of the place.
Go to the Circus Maximus.
Right. Well, when they do it inside a mosque, they can call me. Father Jerry, as always, thank you for being here.
You're welcome, Raymond.
And Father joins me over on the Arroyo Grande podcast this week. But first, I sat down with Emmy-winning television legend Kathie Lee Gifford. We talked about her time with Regis Philbin and Hoda Kotb and what might explain the collapse of late-night television and one Jimmy Kimmel. Take a look.
You were part of not only great morning TV, you were on all those great late-night shows as well. It was a very different vibe.
It was dynamic. It was exciting.
What happened?
They got all full of themselves. And I remember, and I liked Jimmy Kimmel as a person. When Jimmy got his late night show, he called me and he goes, Kathie, I don't know what I'm doing. Will you come in the first week and help me? Will you co-host with me the first week? And I said, sure. I got off and I went out to LA, and I was with Jimmy that very first week of him trying to,
find his way.
We all learn to swim in new waters. You got to learn to do that.
Yeah.
Every show is different, and especially if you go from a huge leap from, what he did, the Man Show kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then he went to that, and I knew I helped him, and he was grateful. And then all of a sudden I'd see clips or something of this person that I used to enjoy being with and enjoyed making television with, and I go, I don't even recognize them anymore. They all got scared
of
being canceled. I never cared. They tried to cancel me my entire career.
Yeah.
I said, fine. I don't work for you. I work for a higher power.
And you're true to that gift.
I'm true to that. Yeah, you go ahead and cancel me. God doesn't cancel people. God embraces people. Jesus never canceled anybody. He walked with them. He talked with them. He ate with them and loved them and showed them the way to a life of joy and a life of service and a life of purpose.
Yeah.
The exact opposite of cancer.
You see,
cancel. It's cancer culture.
Yeah.
That
cancer
just came
culture.
out. Yeah, I didn't mean it that way, but
yeah.
And I wish everybody well, but don't you mess with my authenticity. That comes straight from the Lord God. That's what's happened when you lose God in your life. You get mean because you get angry. You get angry.
The full Arroyo Grande interview with Kathie Lee Gifford is on YouTube at Arroyo Grande Show or wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, iHeart, and be sure to subscribe. You don't want to miss an Arroyo Grande show. It's free. We've got great things coming up. And Friday's Prayerful Posse delves into Pope Leo's approach to the Latin Mass, China, and more. Visit RaymondArroyo.com for all those links. And while you're there, I'm doing something I've never done. I'm going on a cruise in the footsteps of St. Paul and St. John, and you are invited. In September of 2026, we're going to Thessalonica and Patmos, Athens, Ephesus, to the Virgin Mary's house. It's going to be an inspiring trip. All the details are at RaymondArroyo.com. Space is limited. Sign up quickly, and we'll see you on that incredible voyage to Greece. President Trump addressed the United Nations this week, commenting on terrorism and the persecution of Christians. The vicious persecution of Christians continues in Syria, and New York seems poised to elect a socialist Muslim as mayor. With analysis of all these stories and more, I'm joined by foreign policy analyst, co-host of the War and Freedom podcast, Dr. Walid Phares. Walid, always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for coming back. Some breaking news today. Turkish President Erdogan is in town this week to meet with President Trump. The two are expected to discuss defense, including the potential sale of the F-35 fighters, energy deals. Just recently, Ankara announced it was ending retaliatory tariffs against the U.S., and the Israeli-Hamas conflict will most likely be addressed as well. This meeting follows on the heels of Trump's address to the UN, which we'll get to in a moment. Walid, your thoughts on that meeting with Erdogan? What is the outcome, if anything, particularly regarding those fighter jets, and how important Turkey is to the region, given the Hamas conflict?
I would start with, if anything, probably.
Okay.
That would be the major question about, are we going to see something?
Yeah.
Or is it an illustration of the friendship that President Trump and President Erdogan have had for a long period of time and are trying to save it despite the problems on the ground? We know President Erdogan, Turkey, the government, has an issue with Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu, who also is another friend between, he is a friend with Trump. So now President Trump is a friend with two friends who are enemies at this point in time. So there could be the beginning of a moderation, meaning Turkish-Israeli plan for Syria. That's why I said we don't know if this is going to yield something, but this would be the general direction. With regard to the military industries, Turkey has one of the largest military industries that cooperate with the U.S., regardless of who's the president here and there. So the deep institution in both countries, they want to continue. But there are major, major problems in Syria.
Will human rights in Turkey be addressed, do you think? Or will they stick to economic and foreign policy?
They will be doing business. They will be dealing first with the business understanding. And that's the policy that we have right now, also in Syria, also with Iran, also with other places, to see if the president can resolve it with option A, which is, come on, let's do a deal. But if that doesn't work, as was the case in Iran, he will hit their forte.
There's a bizarre story out of Europe. Mystery drones are creating chaos over 4 airports in Denmark. The Danish government's considering whether to call in NATO over these incursions. Now, we've seen problems with Russian drones in Europe, particularly in Poland. What are you hearing about these incursions? Who do you think's behind them, and what's the purpose?
Well, you mentioned Poland. There we have a test. We knew exactly these were Russians. The Russians are sending a message to these countries, which in general are very combative and they want to support Ukraine and push back against the Russians. It's a test telling them, you Europeans, either you facilitate our understanding with President Trump on Ukraine and stop talking about a counteroffensive that goes all the way to Moscow or something, and let us work. Or else we have a lot of toys like these drones. But I don't think these waves of drones are offensive, meaning they come, they do some circles and leave. And that would leave those governments, including Denmark or Poland, to see if they will go back immediately to the U.S. and Britain and tell them, help us. That's a test, a major test.
Okay, President Trump was at the UN this week, and it was one for the history books. I mean, he complained about everything from the escalators to the teleprompter problems, terrorism to religious freedom. Watch.
Let us protect religious liberty, including for the most persecuted religion on the planet today. It's called Christianity.
Dr. Phares, what we've been talking about for years and years and years, the persecuted Christians, and you and I have talked about it for decades on this show. What are your thoughts about President Trump's support for persecuted Christians and putting that in the middle of his UN address?
That's very important. There is, as you know, you and I spoke about it, there is a huge pro-freedom movement in America. I mean, 2/3 of Congress. And there are conventions all year long on persecution of Christians in particular. And we know that 70%, 80% of the base of Trump, the voters, are Christian, and they are concerned about the persecution. So him placing that statement at the UN is extremely important, but you and I already will be talking about it when you're going to ask me, how about the Christians actually in the Middle East and mostly in Syria?
In Syria. I mean, there's an ongoing persecution in Syria. Congo, again, getting no coverage. Africa gets no coverage. They wipe out villages. They burn down churches. Nobody covers them. We cover them. But it's outrageous
It is.
that the world isn't focused on this and that isn't part of American policy. Is this an indication that it will be or already is?
Where you're right, Raymond, is the coverage, aside from the Catholic organizations like yours, your show specifically, it's very little, not just in Congo, but also in Nigeria. There have been massacres in Nigeria,
terrible.
in other places, and before that with Southern Sudan when we spoke about
years and years.
Yes, President Trump feel that there is a large community of American Christians, Catholics in particular, who are very concerned about these persecutions, and as we said, Syria. So he made a good move to talk about it. But then there need to be a dialogue between the White House is very good at that. I mean, they have task forces with pastors, with priests. That should go there. This discussion of the Christian persecution, meaning the principle is great, but what we're going to do on the ground,
right?
Especially when we go to these countries. In the past, there was Lebanon. Now it is Syria. You're right.
The president also signaled the nuclear threat posed by Iran.
There is no more serious danger to our planet today than the most powerful and destructive weapons ever devised by man, of which the United States, as you know, has many. Just as I did in my first term, I've made containing these threats a top priority, starting with the nation of Iran. My position is very simple. The world's #1 sponsor of terror can never be allowed to possess the most dangerous weapon.
Walid, has the U.S. managed to derail Iran's nuclear ambitions? How much remains at this point? How much of a threat?
Raymond, the Trump administration destroyed the Iranian nuclear threat. And I was like joking on my account on Twitter saying, why are we negotiating with them if the problem is gone? What is it behind it? What kind of deal is there behind since the threat is gone? The answer is that he's thinking about beyond his presidency. I mean, 3.5 years, and then what are the future U.S. president going to do about the actual regime? Because the regime may be now waiting for first of all, for our midterm. And, they have a lot of tricks to play with the midterm.
Right.
And then the end of this presidency to go back to the nuclear. I would say he is looking at longer term. What can we do? Should we keep that regime? Should we work with the opposition to disinstall it? That's the question.
Yeah. Well, you were always a big proponent of stoke civil society, allow the civil society there to move forward, and we'll see. After those strikes, I was surprised we didn't see a greater push.
That's a great point. That's a great point. We even discussed it here. There were like 3 days needed. Not for the American Air Force. The Israeli Air Force was on the ground to eliminate those militias known as Pasdaran or Basij. And people were moving to the streets. Qatar ran immediately to the United States and did a deal.
Well, for the first time in 60 years, a Syrian president addressed the UN. President Ahmad al-Shara said Wednesday that Syria is returning to the international community after 6 decades of a dictatorship. Now, that dictatorship killed 1 million people, tortured hundreds of thousands. What does this mean to the people of Syria, particularly the Christians who are undergoing the persecution we just talked about?
That's a big problem, Raymond. We have to be very clear and frank with our public, especially the Christians and Catholics in particular. Assad collapsed in December. That's a good news. He was a dictator, and he was also backing Hezbollah and the Islamic regime and so on and so forth. What replaced him is not yet what we need to see in Syria. It's in transition. And because who elected, the current president? 300 jihadi commanders. I can give you the picture. And then second, yes, he has been recognized by Arabs, by our administration, but the issue is when will he start protecting the minorities? And we need to hear that from the minorities, including from the Christians, because all what we see on videos, social media, are Christian villages burning. I mean, you could go online now. You could show those pictures. So a real solution would have to be found for those minorities, especially the Northwest, where Alawites and Christians are.
I want to shift to this notion of recognizing a Palestinian state. I talked to Marco Rubio about this weeks ago. On September 21st, Britain, Canada, Australia, Portugal announced they would formally recognize this Palestinian state. In days, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Malta are expected to do the same this week. What does this mean to the world and the stability of the region?
Let me educate our audience a little bit more. They may not remember, they should ask their own historians at their foreign policy circles, that this was done already by the United Nations in 1947, UN Resolution 181, partition plan, one Israel state, and then one Palestinian state. So that resolution exists. Why are they bringing back a specific resolution on the creation of the Palestinian state? I think this is a pressure on Israel. They want Israel to accept the ceasefire. And that is done by many countries around the world. But what is more important is Israel would even accept that to stop the fire against the Hamas, but wants guarantees that Hamas is not going to be the next government of Palestine. It's not about the idea of Palestine. It's about who will rule it, jihadists or not. Everybody knows the current authority, Palestinian authority, is not good. They can't do it. They are not fighting Hamas. So maybe the Arab world, the Arab coalition, the UAE, Saudi, Egypt, who know very well that if Hamas rules the Palestinian state, guess who's the next target? It's not going to be Israel. It's going to be them.
There are reports that Qatar, who you mentioned earlier, are pouring billions into the U.S. education system, Walid. Tell us about this development, what Qatar hopes to gain through this financial infusion into these U.S. educational institutions. What are they getting for their money?
Raymond, we have been among the first ones 8 or 10 years ago to mention. I mean, you could go back to your videos that Qatar and the Muslim Brotherhood are in fact pouring in money on campuses in the United States to control the classroom, to control who teaches the Middle East, who teaches foreign policy. And that's from sea to shining sea. And what is the result of that? Two things. Number one, they have influenced people inside various bureaucracies here and in, of course, Europe. But more important, those hundreds of thousands of demonstrators that we have been seeing since October 7 or even before, who are demonstrating not just against Israel, but against the very existence of the United States and our U.S. citizens. This is the result of Qatar influence in our classroom.
So they're kind of like the Confucius Institutes that China implanted in so many universities. This is the Middle Eastern version of that.
Absolutely, which preceded the China one. It had started actually after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And I would say end of the 90s, not the beginning of the 90s. And I was screaming still, what's going on with our Middle East programs? Why are we not mentioning the ethnic minorities, the Christian minorities? Well, because of the Qatar money. And it's true, it's $100 billion. Let me give you the better one. So Qatar, which is helping the United States or trying or saying so, has pledged $1.2 trillion. I don't know how to count that. So with the Iran deal, there was $150 billion being invested and then invested back in the United States. What can you say about $1 trillion? Nobody can stop it. No media, no academia, nothing. No politician. This is an invasion.
But you believe it changes it changes not only what people are being taught on university campuses, but everything in the wider universe.
That's everything.
Wow.
That's everything. That's why you see. Let me end it with this one. A total silence on the persecution of Christian minorities in the Middle East, because there are no more voice.
They just
without you and a few others, everything has been taken by that influence.
Outrageous. On Wednesday, a shooter opened fire from a nearby roof on a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Center in Dallas, killing one detainee and wounding another. He eventually took his own life. Although the motivation for the attack is unknown, the head of the FBI, Kash Patel, released a photo on social media that shows a bullet found at the scene with the words anti-ICE written in what appears to be marker. Walid, there is this alarming escalation in these shooters. Tell me what we're seeing and combine it with the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk, which this shooter obviously is copycatting in some way.
It is all a one-mother machine. Everything you see, even the individual criminal who is perpetrating the attack doesn't know why he's doing this, because he's manipulated by these, Italian-like systems of medieval art, but it's a very bad art, killing people. The money that has been circulating has been not just touching the classrooms, but also social media. And then from social media, you're going to they would identify the people behind. I mean, those who wants to actually attack our national security, to actually disorient the administration and create conditions for civil war. That's what this far left / jihadi group, and we don't want to go into who is moving this, but we almost know who's moving this. That's what they're trying to do. Now, these attacks against authority, against units, this is to weaken our system on the border. The assassination of Kirk, a great man, is basically to disorient the masses, because the movement that he led, along with other movements, was actually arising as a resistance to what they were trying to do, including Antifa and the rest.
According to the New York Post, Democratic mayoral nominee Zohran Mamdani holds a dominant 20-point lead in that New York mayoral race, boosted by majority support from blacks, Latinos, Asian voters. According to a new poll released Tuesday, Mamdani leads independent candidate and former Governor Andrew Cuomo 45% to 25%, Walid.
That's huge.
I mean, I won't even. Curtis Slee was down at 9%. The current mayor, Eric Adams, 8%. What does this race mean to those outside of New York City?
That's the whole point, Raymond. First of all, he gathered everything that you can gather, all his machines, all the organizations. They, as they have been demonstrating for the last 2, 3, 4 years, since 2020, the summer of 2020. So that side of the bloc has been organizing, found one candidate, and putting all the resources we can see and the resources behind them that we were talking about. Unfortunately, on the other side, there were divisions that don't even have one united candidate. And unfortunately, they didn't understand what the NGO work for over 4 to 5 to 6 years meant in reality. It's the replacement of the political class, ruling political class, both Republican and Democrat, and bringing in the most radical that we have ever seen.
Yeah, but the face of this candidate, he's a great candidate. I mean, he smiles, he's young, he's bouncing around. Look, he's a son of a director. I mean, this is not a dumb kid who came up from nothing. But he is an amazing figure and face for what I think we all are in agreement. It's a poisonous ideology that he carries.
Oh, totally. He is, and others in Congress before him tried to be the nice face of a dragon. And I don't mean it in terms of personal attack. I mean as a political machine. The political machine was prepared before him. That's Antifa. That's all the various organizations. So they needed a person who would represent the nice face of that dragon while moving forward. Every political party in Europe used the same tactic, meaning focus mostly on the character, how cool it is, how etc. But reality, when they get to power, look what happened in the 8 years of Obama and the 4 years of Biden. That's going to be a replica of it.
Wow. We'll leave it there. Walid Phares, his book, Iran, An Imperialist Republic and U.S. Policy, is still available at bookstores everywhere. Walid Phares, always a pleasure.
Thank you.
You know him as the director of Soul Surfer, the recent hit biopic Reagan, starring Dennis Quaid. He's also the director and producer of a gripping new World War II drama, the true story of Joseph Bao, a gifted artist and master forger. Bao risked his life to save others, using his talent to create false documents to help fellow prisoners escape certain death. Take a look.
How does this work?
I'm waiting for the sunshine.
Looks like you might have a problem.
Maybe you can be my sunshine. Mama, I met the most wonderful woman for being my sunshine.
Only you yourself would find something like that in a place like this.
I see you. You take care of everybody. But who takes care of you?
If we do our work, maybe we can survive this madness and tell our story.
Rebecca Tenenbaum. However long forever is, share it with me.
Here to tell us all about Bao, Artist at War, starring Emile Hirsch. Please welcome Sean McNamara. Sean, thank you for being here. Bao, Artist at War, as I mentioned, it's based on a true story. Tell me how you first discovered or encountered this story, and how did you know it needed to become a film?
Well, I think I saw it like most people the first time when I saw Schindler's List. It was the couple who got married in Schindler's List. And I didn't know this, but 30 years later, I would be handed a script called Bao, Artists at War. And it turns out it's the story of that couple who got married in Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List. And I read this incredible script. And what was crazy, it was funny. The lead character, Joseph Bao, was joking throughout it. And I was like, this is really good. And I recognized these characters. And then it dawned on me that it was from Schindler's List. And it just turned out great. And I went to Tel Aviv and met Joseph Bao's daughters. And they gave me his book, Dear God, Have You Ever Gone Hungry? And there were these drawings that he did while he was in Plaszow concentration camp that were just jumping off the page. They were just incredible. And he's a real artist. I mean, he just has oil paintings, watercolors, and beautiful stuff. But when I saw he's an artist and he was a forger and all the things he did, I just thought it. And the biggest thing about this thing is it's a love story. He secretly met his wife, Rebecca, there. And well, they weren't married at first, but they fell in love and got married. And it was all kept a secret from all of the guards.
Yeah, no, it really does focus on that relationship particularly. What's the message here for audiences when there is so much that divides people, Sean, isolates people, perhaps now more than ever? There is a crossover here between this World War II story and what we're seeing today in society.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because when we made it 2 years ago, I wasn't thinking about that. I was making a tale. I thought of an event that happened 80 years ago, and we have to tell the story to remind people. And then, of course, October 7th hit, and then there's where the state of the world is now. And the world needs to see this movie now to see what can go wrong if it's pushed to the extreme. But the biggest thing is, like, does someone want to go see a Holocaust movie? And I say yes, because it is more comical. I made it PG-13 instead of R, because I wanted more people to see it and to see what can happen with Joseph Bao being a jokester. He would have been like a modern day Robin Williams, would just joke at the most inappropriate times. And what I found from research with survivors is when they could laugh, they could find joy. And if I wanted anybody to walk away with a message of this is, if you can find in your darkest times joy and laughter, miracles do happen.
Yeah, I want to give people a taste of what they'll be seeing. Here's a clip of Bao, Artist at War.
Rebecca Tenenbaum. However long forever is. You share it with me.
I still think you're a crazy person.
Warn me if that ever changes. I'm afraid it's going to be a very short engagement. In fact, I've already sent out invitations.
Such a sweet scene about the power of love, even in the darkest times. I mean, this really is the heart of the film, this love story between Joseph and Rebecca. And I know Bao is a spy thriller, and it's got a lot of the things that move it along. But at its heart, it's a love story. Tell me about that relationship between Joseph and Rebecca here.
Well, like everyone, they were in the ghetto, and then they were pushed into the Plaszow barracks outside of Krakow. And they were separated in the day and the night. They had different barracks for the men and different for the women. Mm-hmm. And because Joseph was a map maker, they would let him into the other parts of the barracks so that he could draw maps for the commandant and all the soldiers there. And that's when he had a mission. They said, you have to finish 3 maps by tonight. And he goes, that's impossible. The sun's not out. And they said, well, do it or we're going to end your life, basically. And so he went out just hoping for the sun to come, and she walked up and she called he called her, "Would you be my sunshine?" And that started the romance. Those were the first words to her. And somehow the sun did come out, and it dried his plans that he could show the soldiers. And they lived, and then they carried on a secret love affair, and then got married in the barracks.
Unbelievable. You've assembled an amazing cast here, led by Emil Hirsch. And Emil said recently that he was impressed by the optimism of Joseph Bao, the optimism he had in the face of such terrible evil. What was it like making this film, particularly a film with, these are heavy themes, Sean?
Well, absolutely. They are heavy things, but I think this is exactly what Joseph would have wanted us to do. He wanted to lighten it up because, look, we're here, we're in this horrible place. Let's joke about it, because if we can just laugh a little bit, it changes your brain chemistry. It makes you happier. And like I said, the survivors found if they could find something to live for, something to laugh for, some sense of joy, those were the ones that survived. And they're 100 years old right now, 101 years old. And they were saying that's what did it. If they could find any humor, it made such a difference. And Joseph, besides saving over 1,100 lives, which then their families went on in his own family, it was that sense of joking and that he kept people alive with his point of view of life.
Sean, you're a filmmaker in Hollywood and a Catholic. You've made faith-based films as well as secular ones. Faith in film used to be quite commonplace. It was sort of integrated into the characters' lives. Tell me how your faith has directed the way you approach filmmaking, as well as characters.
Well, again, like you, I grew up on movies that had faith in the movies. Nobody ever talked about it. It was just part of it. It wasn't a big deal. And then Hollywood kind of swayed away from that. And then Hollywood, like in the early 2000s, came back and said, we're going to make faith-based movies. And so, and then that kind of turned some people off because they don't want to be hammered over the head by it. So I try to find it organically. And with my own faith, I mean, look, I believe in Jesus. I'm a Catholic. I went to 16 years of Catholic school. Making films about my faith and about other people's faith is how I connect to God and help other people. When I was young, I used to read Chicken Soup for the Soul. That was like what got me going or inspired. And I want to inspire other people to follow their faith by looking at a movie of characters who go through, really tough times and come out the other side. And hopefully I want to make people laugh. I want to make them cry. I want to make them mad. But at the end of the day, I want them to be filled with joy and to know that there's miracles everywhere. You just have to look for them. You can look for the bad things. That's easy. But this movie is about miracles.
You had a big hit last year with the Ronald Reagan movie, Reagan, with Dennis Quaid. In fact, you started in the business doing audio for Ronald Reagan 40 years ago. And 40 years later, you directed a movie about him. What do you look for in stories and the stories you believe could make great films?
Well, that's very interesting. Yes, my buddy's dad directed the Academy Awards. I kept trying to get a meeting with him. They'd never get me a meeting. And then one day they did get me a meeting. And the first thing Marty Pacetta asked me, who was the director of the Academy Awards, "Kid, what do you want to do?" And I was like dumbfounded. I didn't even know what to say. I didn't think to come in with an idea. I thought, oh, you just get a job. And I said, well, I'm in a band. I plug in microphones. And he goes, audio, that's for you. And the next thing I know, a black limo shows up at my house. I get on an airplane and I'm plugging in microphones for Ronald Reagan's inauguration in 1981.
Wow.
So since then, I look for movies that inspire me. For me, it was Rocky. I found myself the day after I saw Rocky jogging down the street. I didn't want to be a fighter, but I just wanted to do something. I was inspired to do something. And if I can inspire people now with my movies and to know that anything is possible. If you look at Soul Surfer or Reagan, I mean, he was knocked down. I mean, he was out for the count. He was governor of California. Then he ran for president. He lost. And then he came back again and he won. That was another miracle. That was 1 billion to 1 shot that happened. And but if you put your mind to it, and you pray, miracles do happen, in my opinion.
I'll say. And Bao, Artist at War, directed by Sean McNamara, starring Emil Hirsch, is its own miracle. It hits theaters Friday, September 26th. For showtimes and tickets in your area, check your local listings or visit baomovie.com. Sean McNamara, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
That is all the time we have for now. Until next week, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, thank you for watching. I'm Raymond Arroyo. Bye now.